Good afternoon and welcome to another ABSA Group Limited LinkedIn Live session. I am Jo Blake, the Group Talent Acquisition Lead for ABSA Group Limited. The Rising Star program, operated by Black Bark Productions, has been established for the purposes of recognizing, celebrating, and connecting young, talented people who have the capacity for achievement and success and who contribute in an inspirational manner to the future of our nation. The qualities that elevate rising stars to the top go beyond performance and technical excellence. Rising stars are polished, brilliant individuals with tremendous promise and great talent who excel for reasons that go far beyond their technical abilities alone. The program aims to be a significant and sustainable vehicle through which the organizations, our country, and our continent can identify and nurture these organizational and national assets who are set to play a key role in the shaping of the future of our country and, of course, our continent. Today, we chat to our very own Accenture Rising Star Award winner in the category Banking and Financial Services, Niren Ram, Head Analytics Enablement, ABSA Corporate and Investment Banking. Welcome, Niren.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome to have you here. Tell me, has it sunk in yet?
Not quite. I think there's still moments where I go back to YouTube and watch the stream, and I look at that moment and I'm like, okay, that's me. And sometimes I'm like, maybe I should have done something a bit differently, or stood a bit differently, or it really hasn't. I'm enjoying every minute of it.
Well,
though.
you should. You absolutely should. I want to say on behalf of ABSA, a huge congratulations to you.
Thank you.
We are super, super proud of you, and it was such a privilege to actually be there and see you, get the award in person. So thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome to all of you that have dialed in to celebrate Niren's achievement with us. Okay, Niren, I want to get people to understand who Niren Ram is at the core of your sort of being and your wholeness. Talk me through your career trajectory in ABSA. Sort of where did you start? How do you find yourself in this fancy role that you're in? I certainly would love to know. So please do share.
Sure. So maybe I'll start at the beginning of my career, because at the core I was not from banking and financial services. I'm actually from the engineering industry. So
Okay.
I was a chemical engineering student, studied as that, qualified as that, and I think when I completed my degree and completed my master's degree, I struggled to get into the actual engineering field. So at that time, I think it was around 2012, there were two roles in my mind. I always wanted to be a sustainability engineer or an R&D engineer. So those were the roles that I was fixated on. And the more I tried to get there, I just was not successful in that. I always told people the reason I didn't get into engineering was because it didn't go with my hair. And, wearing a hard hat was not my thing.
No, definitely not.
The struggle of actually finding my place there was something that really took time. So bounced from contract to contract, and then finally, and I still remember this day clearly, I was in a company working on contract for a company that built simulators for mining equipment.
Okay.
And it was a Wednesday, and I had just got an offer from a bank, and I call my mom and I tell her, I just got into this program. I need to move to Joburg. I was Durban based at the time, and she's like, "When do you leave?" And I said, "This weekend."
Oh,
so,
wow.
Everyone helps me to pack. I then pack my stuff, pack my car, move up to the city. And that's how my banking career started. I was a process engineer for business process mapping.
Okay.
Networked my way into a quant role. That's where my data journey started. And finally reached a point where I was in a space where I was always searching for something. I didn't know what that something was, but I just never felt content where I was. So moved to consulting. Again, through that space, still searching for something. So searching for belonging, and still didn't find that until I was on an ABSA assignment in ABSA CIB, and I'd met this team who I was working with indirectly, and they kind of adopted me as a person and integrated me into their team. And I felt so comfortable and so at ease with myself for the first time, I would say, in my career, that I thought that this is the space that I want to be in.
Beautiful.
And it was December 2015 when I had moved to APSA. And so I've been here ever since, exploring a few spaces,
Amazing.
exploring a few roles. So moved from the CIB space into the group, into a data-specific role in a few spaces, and then finally landed up in a space. And I think this is where my passion for people started. Was I used to build a lot of models when I was at APSA at the beginning, and then I moved to support the chief data officer's office. In the group. And as part of my portfolio was a diversity transformation and inclusion component.
Beautiful.
And I thought,
love
what
that.
on earth am I going to do with this
yeah.
role? I'm a data specialist, and I think through those experiences, that's where, and through those stories that I've heard that people had, and the challenges that people had, that's where I realized that there's so much more that I could do. There's so much more that I could use my platform for. And through that grew in a specific way. I had quite a few nice lived experiences, and then I moved back to CIB in the role that I'm currently in. And I must say my APSA journey has been varied, with I would say with a hint of data, but very varied. But the experiences that I've had has been amazing especially with the focus on people.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing, Niren. And I love that you speak about variety and variation, and the fact that you've moved, across the organization, started out in CIB, moved back to group. That just talks to kind of your zeal for kind of wanting to move forward and keep going. So thank you very much for sharing. But back to Rising Star, I want to talk about sort of the program. It is well known in the industry as one of the top programs to get into. Why now, and why you at this point in your career?
I think the pandemic particularly left me with many moments where I was feeling quite reflective. So reflecting on my experiences, reflecting on my life, finding myself at roadblocks or crossroads at many points. And when I saw this program, there's a friend of mine actually who entered last year in a different category. I think she's from telecoms. And we kept in touch and we spoke about this program quite a bit. And when this opened up in 2021, she sent me a message and said, "You know what? I think it's time you apply for this." And I thought about it, and I was in two minds about it. But I took the plunge, opened up that form, filled out the details, and then I was shortlisted. And I got a message from the Rising Stars team saying that I was a shortlisted for this. There's a process, log online and go through this interview process, which was quite a fantastic experience. So went through the process, and I think the timing, again, because I was feeling reflective. I think the timing was great from my end, and also the program being available at that time, where it made me look quite deeply at myself, quite deeply at my experiences. And I would say there's been moments in that entire journey where I've had a bit of an out-of-body experience looking at myself from the time I started in engineering, from the time that I entered APSA to the space that I'm in now, where I've looked at myself and I've looked at certain moments and moments that were impactful. And there's sometimes when I feel, did you really do that? And there's sometimes when I'm like, okay, I'm proud of what you've done.
Amazing.
And I think, it's that experience that's really helped me focus on myself, focus on the moments of my life that were shaping, focus on the people who have also played a role in shaping my career, and also being grateful for that. And I think that's why I did it this year. The pandemic made me really reflective.
Amazing. Good stuff. And tell me something. The Rising Star, you spoke about how, it sort of puts you in a place where you're looking back in order to obviously move forward, which is fantastic. The fact that you've won now is, I mean, that's an accolade that's going to stay with you forever. What does the achievement mean to you? I mean, you speak about impact, you talk about your love for people. What does this achievement mean for you, Niren?
I must say I'm still figuring that out, but I'll share what I figured out to date. It's not even a week old yet.
Yes, yes.
And walking up on that stage, on that platform, and hearing those words that the judges had to say about me, as I said, I still keep going back and watching that, and I'm like, are they speaking about me? So it feels great. To be recognized on a platform like that has really, I can't really describe that in words. It feels so. It really impacts me quite deeply. And the way this shapes my perspective, and I think that's important to note, is the way it shaped my perspective. I look at the work that I've done, especially the work that I've done in society, the passion projects that I've taken on that were outside the scope of my role, and I look at all those things, and I feel like it's been recognized. It's our organization recognizes it quite a lot, but when it's recognized outside in the industry, it's really impactful, and it makes me feel like the work that I'm doing at APSA, the work that I'm doing for people at APSA, but also the people outside in our country, it really feels like it's being seen and heard. And it really just, again, reinforces what we believe in as an organization, what I believe in as a person.
Yes.
It just really says that, we've seen you, we've noticed it, and keep doing what you're doing.
Fantastic. That's so lovely. You've summed it up so beautifully. I mean, if I reflect on just how we're operating at the moment in this virtual context, we're onboarding new employees into ABSA, and that's one of the kind of things that we're focusing on. Like, how do we make you seen, make you heard, make you feel welcomed? And in the context of you and this achievement, it's about, yes, Niren, we recognize what you're bringing to the table, and good on you. I love that. Thank you very much for sharing. Niren, you speak a lot about your variety in terms of your roles, the impact that you've created. What kind of drives you to continuously develop yourself? Because that's tough. You were sitting in a space where chemical engineering may not have been for you, or it was for you in your heart, but they weren't ready to receive you. But banking welcomed you with open arms. And it's hard, it's hard to kind of pivot away from something that you'd set your mind on and your heart on. You've now found yourself in a different kind of arena. And yet here you are constantly kind of looking at yourself and going, how else can I develop myself? What kind of keeps you going in that regard?
So a few things. I think at the beginning of my career, it was always, again, you're trying to prove yourself. And I mean, when you're young, that's all you want to do.
Yes,
you want to really show the world that you're worthy of being on that stage. And that motivated me in the beginning, where I wanted to show what my capabilities were. I think a lot of people at the time looked at me critically, being like, "What is an engineer doing in banking?" It's still today I can't explain that, but here I am. It was that did push me in the beginning, but as I grew, as I developed, and again I'd reflect on that interactions with people around diversity, transformation, and inclusion. When I reflect on those moments, the stories that people had to share, the experiences that they've had, really started shaping the questions that I asked myself. And the questions that I asked myself was, how can I contribute to impacting these people? How can I contribute to, creating some sort of ecosystem that is inclusive in nature? And that really kept me going. When I look at my own space, when I look at some of the skills that we look at and speak about as future skills like data, technology, digital, we look at what I've really tried to break down was it's not reserved for some, it's for everyone. Yes. And that's really the work that I've been wanting to do. When I hear of stories that people are leveraging the programs or the ecosystem that we share, that keeps me going. That's like, oh, how can I improve this? More than that, I think in general, my mind's just curious. It's always working, and I ask questions that I don't think people really want to know the answers to or really care what the answers are. So I keep asking strange questions, and I still have quite a close affiliation to academia. So plugging into that, asking questions, being curious, speaking to people. And that keeps me motivated. I think my teams also keep me motivated.
Fantastic.
Every conversation that I have with them, and there's a lady specifically in my team, her name's Brenda. Every conversation that I have with her, she always leaves me with so many other questions that I go back and I think quite deeply about. And then we share ideas and share thoughts. And I think when we create that environment of people asking questions, people wanting to know answers to questions that we pose, being a bit philosophical about stuff as well is always welcomed. It really just keeps me going to be motivated.
Awesome. So curious mind, hey, and you do definitely touch on the concept of kind of iron sharpens iron, just by surrounding yourself with the right people, the types and the quality of the questions that you're asking, and the fact that you give yourself the opportunity to then reflect, and then your curiosity is kind of upped again. I love that so much. Niren, just in terms of the shaping role in society aspect, you touched on that a little bit earlier. I know you've got a deep passion for kind of youth development as well. Talk me through kind of what else do you do outside of the ambit of your role within ABSA?
So, the role in society play is quite important to me, just in general. I think when we look at, again, I'll touch on the COVID-19 impact, and I'll even bring in the component of the Rising Star piece. When we look at the impact that it's had on youth, that it's had on scholars, that it's had on students, it's transitioning to digital ways of work has been difficult for us. It's been even worse for students. It's been even worse for some youth who don't have access to platforms or digital technologies. And when I think about how it's marginalized people who don't have access to these platforms, it really does hurt me quite deeply. And I think about what can I do about this. The Rising Star case study was focused around youth employability and also the impact that COVID had on youth, how unemployment rates have been at the highest that it's ever been in the country. These are all elements that we can speak about, but what keeps motivating me to play a role in society is I look at the skills that I have and I look at how can we integrate this into our CSI programs, how can we integrate this in the role that we play, rather than just giving out, let's say, some cash. How can I as an individual who has these skills give back to the society? And I think, when I looked at that case study, when I look at the pieces of work that we do around learning and development for communities and for students, I think that I'm sitting on a whole lot of skills. I don't need it all for myself. I can definitely just pay it forward and share it with others. I think one of the big things that I really wanted to do was get onto the Fourth Industrial Revolution committee that the president has to share my thoughts, share my ideas on what coding means for kids, what machines would look like for the future. And I think when I think about the future, I think about the future a lot. I think about what the machines would look like in the future, what the robots would look like for the future. But I think everything that underpins that, what I think about quite deeply is what the value systems would look like in the future. Will these robots have human values? Can we teach them human values? And I think these are questions that as a collective, as a society, we can answer, or that we can contribute to answering. And that's what I always want to invite is, what are these various thoughts that people have, and what role can I play in pulling it together as we move forward as a society, as a continent, as a country. That's really what keeps me going to play the role that I play in society.
Awesome. And Niren, can you talk us through kind of what are you actively doing outside, beyond ABSA? Like, are you involved in your community? What do you do there? What are those types of things?
So recently, I'm a student again, so I'm quite involved with the university. recently what we've done, again with APSA, but leveraging partnerships with universities particularly, is creating a platform for students to understand what the workplace looks like for data and data science. So I've done that with a colleague from APSA CIB. And basically what I do is I leverage APSA as a platform and create the ecosystem around us. So in my personal capacity, involved with schools around, what does this career mean for an individual? Specifically with students, and when I say students, secondary education, so high school students who are making these career decisions. I'd like to share that there is an option that is not structured. It doesn't matter what you study. You can get into data, technology, digital, these future skills. You can do that. Even if you did biology in school, there's a space for this in health sciences, for instance. And these are the stories that I'd like to share with students who are still at school making those decisions. I think young people put so much stress on themselves because these decisions are so major, because that can shape the way your future looks like. So I do that quite actively with tertiary institutions quite involved there. Again, speaking about what data science, machine learning looks like in the workplace. I want to get a bit closer to, let's say, junior education, where coding has become quite prominent. That's one of the things that I do want to get closer to. But more than anything, I just like to share with young people that the future, there's hope for the future. 100%. There's hope for the future in this country. And collectively, we can shape what it looks like.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Thank you so much for sharing. So at ABSA, we talk to having purpose, passion, and power. I mean, if I reflect back on 2 weeks ago, we had our Lit Learning Week. I'm sure you were a part of that. We talked to our attitudes about being brave, passionate, and ready. In the context of the pandemic, and the reason why I touched on it, I think it's such a topical thing at the moment because we're sitting in a space where we've been in uncertainty for such a long time. Yet here you are, Niren, resilient, you're motivated, you're winning awards, you're doing the things. I really want to kind of share with the audience sort of what is your secret sauce to kind of keep that going, because there is an element I think that we need to reflect on, and it's sort of your mental well-being, your health, financial well-being. Of course, everybody's going through different things at this point in time. So what is your particular secret sauce that keeps you, here and doing the things that you're doing?
I will not deny that the pandemic did give me the most anxiety, mostly because going out there, being in crowds still, still scares me a little. So I definitely was the first in line to get vaccinated when the time came. But over that period, I think when the pandemic hit, or when we were locked down in the first level, the thing that I did do was speak quite openly about how I'm feeling, and how people are feeling. So with my team, with other individuals that I'm close to, I did share quite openly that this is what I'm experiencing. And I think a lot of times we keep our feelings suppressed because we feel that we shouldn't be feeling this way. I think I've allowed myself to experience the emotions that came with uncertainty, the anxiety that came with the uncertainty. I allowed myself to do that. I'm fortunate enough at APSA that I have a very strong support network. People that I can call up and say that I'm not okay, things are, I'm not feeling okay, and this is what I'm experiencing. And I think being in touch with not feeling guilty or not feeling shame for the way you're experiencing anxiety is quite important to get over what you're experiencing. I think that's a very, very important piece of my experience that helped me get through this. So a few things: my network, my support structure, acknowledging components and emotions that you're experiencing, and just live it without the shame and guilt that could come with it, is very helpful to get through something like this. So with that, I think I've also allowed people to do the same with me. So it became quite a safe space. So even though we are virtual, we've managed to create a space where people are, I think, are able to be themselves. I think even in the with data teams, with technologists, fairly introverted individuals, but being behind a camera, not being face to face, people sometimes feel a bit more comfortable to share.
Yeah, sure.
So creating having that environment, creating such environments has been really helpful to be successful in this very uncertain, antsy time. And I would definitely encourage others to experience what you're experiencing, share if you need support, and I think definitely go through the motions to just be authentic.
I love that. And I also love the concept, Niren, of just the way you've showed up as a leader. So, we look at our leaders across the business. You're in this head of analytics enablement role. You're representing the business at the crux of kind of, the makings where all the cogs kind of turn with the data and all of that. And, a lot of the time people would feel like they can't show up as, oh, I'm going through a trying time because what is my team going to think? But instead you stepped into it and you showed up as authentic. And I think that's kind of, what your team has seen from you, and you've lived that and you've almost modeled it for them and then told your story. So I want to applaud you for that as well as a leader across ABSA, and that, you're staying true to kind of the values of the organization that we work for, the fact that we care deeply for the people that work at ABSA, and the fact that you're modeling that is fantastic. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Last question from my side. I know that you're passionate about the youth. There are a lot of young professionals that hop onto our LinkedIn Lives and kind of have a glimpse at who's being featured. What kind of tips would you leave with any young professionals, be them grads or anyone making move in the industry? A career move is a big, significant change for anybody. We're operating obviously in this new world of work. Any tips that you have for young professionals coming into the industry?
Yeah. I have a few.
Okay,
I have a few. So I think the first one is, touching on that decision-making process that students go through. I need to study these subjects when I'm in grade 10, because this will shape what program I get into at university. Then you make that decision at the university level, and then you go through that program. And I'm a big fan of tertiary education. It's my thing. But I really want young people and students to know that suppose you studied something that you don't, or suppose you study something and it's, it doesn't work out the way you want it to work out. Don't feel bad about yourself, or don't feel any negative feelings if you choose to change, if you choose to pursue another career route. I think it's very important that people are more than just their degrees. People are more than just what they've studied, or what school they've gone to. And I really want young people to know that. I want young people to know that you can be in social science and you can be the best data scientist because you have the storytelling ability and the insight on how data impacts people. And that's what we look for as a business. You can be in any space, and there's a space for you. I think that's the first one. Don't dwell on what you've studied and what your formal degree is or what that piece of paper says.
And that's quite a mind shift change. Sorry to hop in there. It's quite a mind shift change in that, if I reflect on even how I was brought up, it was about go to school, you're choosing those, subjects, and then it's varsity, and then it's quite like, whereas the world that we're in at the moment is so far removed from that. It's kind of, it's more fluid, and some people are out there with successful careers and they haven't studied at all. They've only just kind of, done the matric or whatever the case may be is, but they've got an affinity for data or gaming or whatever the case may be is. So I really do, it's a great, important thing in that, just from a point of departure around, it doesn't have to kind of dictate the rest of your life for you, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's definitely one for students who are looking for or moving into university or then moving into the place of work. The second one would definitely be for people who are starting work. So the grads, don't be fixated on role. I think we do that a lot.
Yes.
I think I did that in the beginning of my career. I wanted to be the R&D engineer
Of
or the
course.
sustainability engineer. Those were the two. Nothing else except those two. And I think, when I moved into banking, because I didn't know much about it, I didn't have that roadmap. I didn't really plan the sequence of things. And, I tell a lot of people, don't project manage your life. Don't project manage your career. I think later in life, be deliberate about the moves that you make, but don't be fixated on that role, especially with the way in my space where the technology is evolving, the platforms, the data is evolving. Those roles may not exist in the future.
Sure,
They may
exactly.
be something else.
Yes.
And I always tell younger people that I mentor or coach, do not be fixated on the role. The role in 2025 will not look like this.
No.
So that's the second tip that I would leave people with.
Fantastic.
And then on the third one, on a people level, I feel as an individual, I've spent a lot of my time in my career searching for belonging, searching for meaning, searching for something. And also, most importantly, searching to fit in into a space. And I think the thing that I would leave people with is, in the world where everyone's trying to fit in, it's fine to stand out.
Yes, man, 100%. I love that. That's one of my favorite quotes ever. Thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate the fact that you've joined us today and you've given us a little bit of a glimpse into who Niren is, this award winner, stellar colleague that I'm so proud to call my colleague. Thank you to all of you who have joined us today. So those key tips, just to summarize for you. First and foremost, don't get fixated on a particular role. Second of all, you're studying, you're making big decisions, but at the end of the day, you've kind of just got to roll with it and go with it. And you never know, you might find your home in banking like you did, right? So don't be afraid of the transitions and just go with that. And then last and final one was what again, Niren?
Stand out. Be
Stand
unique.
out.
Yeah.
Of course, it's that one. How could I forget? Thank you so much for everyone who tuned in today. Join us soon for another LinkedIn live event. I really appreciate your time. Thank you, Niren, for joining. And once again, congratulations on behalf of ABSA.
Thank you. And thanks for having me.
You're welcome.